Okay, let's start with something simple. Just take a deep breath. Right now. Go on. Feel that? That's oxygen, of course. The stuff that keeps all of us going. But have you ever really stopped to think about where that oxygen actually comes from? Like, really? What's the first thing that pops in your head? I'm gonna guess you're picturing something like this, right? Big, beautiful green forests, towering trees, the whole deal. Yeah, that's what we all learn in school. Well, what if I told you that whole idea, forests being the lungs of the planet, is, well, it's mostly wrong. The real story is so much cooler and way, way smaller. All right, so let's dig into this whole tree thing. It's not that trees are doing nothing, they definitely make oxygen. It's just the whole story is a bit more complicated than what we got in our science books. Okay, so think of a tree as having two jobs. Job one is photosynthesis. That's the daytime gig, sucking in CO2, spitting out oxygen. We love that part. But job two, which happens 24/7, is just living, respiration. And just like us, they need to breathe to live, which means they actually use up oxygen. And this is where it gets crazy. You take a massive mature forest like the Amazon. Yeah, it's cranking out a ton of oxygen. But the forest itself, with all its trees and animals and microbes, is also breathing in almost that exact same amount. So the net result, what's left over for the rest of us, is basically nothing. It's a wash.
So, okay, if the Amazon is basically at net zero, what about all the forests on Earth combined? What do they really give us? You're probably not going to believe the answer.
Wow. Okay, look at this. All the land plants on the entire planet, they're only responsible for that tiny little slice of the pie. So where in the world is the other 90% coming from? Get this. The number is just 5 to 10%. That's it. That's the net oxygen we get from every single tree, every single forest on the planet. It's important, for sure. But man, it is a lot smaller than you'd think. Which, brings us to the real mystery here. If the trees aren't doing the heavy lifting, who is? Who's the real MVP making the air we breathe? All right, to find the real oxygen powerhouse of our planet, you don't look up into the canopy. You have to look down, into the ocean. The answer has been there all along, hiding in plain sight. Say hello to phytoplankton. These little guys are incredible. They're not really plants, they're just tiny, microscopic organisms floating around in the ocean. And when I say tiny, I mean it. But there are trillions and trillions and trillions of them. And they do the same thing plants do. They photosynthesize. These are our unsung heroes, right here. And the scale of what they do is just mind-blowing. Remember the forests? 5 to 10%. These microscopic powerhouses, they're responsible for anywhere from 50 to 80% of the oxygen we breathe. No question about it, they are the true lungs of the planet.
So let's go back to that breath you took at the beginning. That very breath. Chances are a huge chunk of the oxygen in it didn't come from a tree in some distant rainforest. Nope, it came from the ocean, made by a giant, invisible army of tiny little creatures. And, this isn't a new thing. This has been the case for a very, very long time. In fact, these little organisms are the reason we can breathe at all. They literally built the atmosphere we depend on. Let's do a little time travel. Billions of years ago, Earth's air was basically poison, no oxygen. Then along came these ancient microbes, cyanobacteria. They figured out this new trick called photosynthesis, and they started pumping out oxygen, which, back then, was actually toxic to almost everything else alive. This great oxidation event caused a huge extinction, yeah, but it completely transformed the planet and set the stage for all complex life, including us. So this crazy deep history brings us right back to today, because once you know where our oxygen really comes from, it completely changes what we think about when we talk about protecting our planet. So it's not about trees versus plankton. We have two different heroes here, and they both have critically important jobs. The forests, they're not our main oxygen supply, but they are absolutely essential as the world's best carbon storage lockers. And they're home to so much of the planet's biodiversity. Then you have the phytoplankton. Their main gig, oxygen production. And they're also the base of the entire food web in the ocean. We desperately need both of them to do their jobs. But here's the scary part. Our oxygen supply isn't a given. These phytoplankton are super sensitive. As our climate changes, the oceans get warmer and more acidic.
And that messes up the whole delicate balance these tiny organisms need to survive. It puts them at risk, which in turn puts our air at risk. I mean, it really boils down to something incredibly simple. If you breathe, you need to care about these little plankton. Their health is our health. Their survival is literally our survival. It's that direct.
So the next time you look out at the ocean, try not to just see a big body of water. See it for what it is, a massive, breathing, life-giving engine. And that really leaves us with the big question, doesn't it? What's it going to take to protect these invisible lungs of our world before we all start feeling a little breathless?